joining us today and that we have this opportunity to come to you and talk about the situation that we're in educating our children. You know, I have such a burden for all of the families that are trying to sort out what is best for their children. It's not as simple as it used to be. Some of you are thinking many different things, and you might be wondering, why now? Why is New Vision coming to this now? And I wanted to share a couple of scriptures with you as to why. The first one is in Galatians 6, and that section in my Bible is titled, Bear One Another's Burdens. And it says in verse 2, Bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. So that's one thing first and foremost. But I did not homeschool my children. My children went to public school many, many years ago. So I have experts in the field with me tonight to help us, just give us some best practices, maybe share some of their experiences in teaching and schooling their children at home. And it reminded me of another verse that's over in 1 Peter 4, and it's verse 10. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Whoever speaks as one who speaks oracles of God. Whoever serves as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. To him belong glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. And I would venture to say that these ladies would agree with that the reason that they're here tonight is to serve the Lord and for him to get the glory, to share their expertise, their experience, to help all of you all who are making those decisions. And you know, a lot of us, we have so many decisions to make right now with our children. Some of you are distance learning or virtual learning through the public school system. Some of you may have decided to school at home for the season, maybe for the year. And some of you may be making that decision to homeschool for the long term, you know, for the rest of your children's schooling years. So we want to speak into that just a little bit, but before we do that, I would like for our panel just to take a few minutes to introduce themselves and let you know a little bit about them, their children, and what brought them to homeschooling. So we're going to start over here first with Mandy Curtis. So Mandy.
Hello, I am Mandy Curtis. I have two children. They're both in high school now, well, almost high school. I have a middle schooler and a high schooler. Lydia is 13 and Ethan is 15, and we have homeschooled from the very beginning. And really the thing that brought us to homeschooling is the Lord. That's the only way I can put it. I'm not an educator at heart, or I wasn't when we first started. So God's taught me a lot about himself, and truly it's the Lord that brought us to homeschooling.
That's great. Right beside her, we have Lisa Webb. So Lisa, share about yourself.
So this is our 8th year homeschooling that we've just begun. We have 3 boys. Junior is the oldest, and then he's a junior. The next one is going to be a freshman, and then our little baby is a 5th grader this year. And we are kind of the same way. We went to public school first, but then God really kind of showed me that was not where we wanted to be, and it was through no fault of our school. We had a really excellent school, great teachers and everything, so I couldn't complain about anything, but God drew me to educating our kids at home, and we have not looked back since.
It's great. Your turn, Robin.
I'm Robin Few, and I have an 11th grader, 8th grader, and 6th grader this year, and I'm entering my 12th year of homeschooling, so I have been doing this for a while, but that does not make me an expert by any means. And I just wanted to share some of my favorite things about homeschooling. One would be just that I get to learn with my kids. You know, there's so much to read and study and know about, and I just get to learn with them, and that's lots of fun for me. Sometimes it's fun for them too. Also, I get to teach my children things that I think are important, things that my husband and I think are important for them to know. And also we get to just have them learn in an environment that we feel is good for them. So those are some things that we've enjoyed.
All right, Emily.
I'm Emily Doss, and we started homeschooling because my husband traveled for his job, and we wanted to be able to travel with him. And we've had lots of other advantages that we found from homeschooling, but that was our main reason that we started. I have a 5th grader this year and a 2nd grader. So we're excited about this new year.
Well, that's great. As you all can see, these are the experts. We have had 12 years, you said, that you have homeschooled. We have high schoolers all the way down to elementary school, so they have experienced a lot. I know for myself, I would have probably been fine homeschooling littles, but when it got to where they're high schoolers, I wouldn't know what to do. I would have been at a total loss. And that was one of the things that prompted this evening too, because when I was thinking about that, and if I had decided a week ago or a month ago or 2 months ago that I was going to homeschool, I wouldn't know where to start. I wouldn't even know. I mean, I know you can Google just about anything. Well, you can Google anything, but there is something about having a warm body, having a person that you can go to for references to get their input on things that really helps. So we really wanted to minister to you all in this way. Real quickly, for those of you who maybe are watching online with us tonight, and maybe you're just curious because for the first time in your life, you are going to be distance learning or virtual learning your child at home for a season, for this semester or this year or whatever. That's new to all of us. That's new to homeschoolers. For those of you who have been in the school system, it's new. We don't even really know what to expect. But I believe, let's see, Lisa, you're going to speak to that a little bit on maybe just some things that when they have their children at home, teaching them at home, just some little pointers that might help your children while they're distance learning.
So I know when we first brought our kids home from school, it was difficult because, for one, they're little boys, and I didn't know how to make them sit still. My vision of a school was that everybody sat in neat little rows and they all listened to the teacher. Well, I was the teacher at this point, so I made breakfast and then I had to put on a different hat. My middle one especially, I can remember, he would stand and do his schoolwork, and it drove me crazy. And then I started reading and I started talking to other moms, and I realized that this is what little boys do. They walk around, and he's actually listening that way. I've learned through the 8 years, that he is listening to me when he's moving. And I also learned a really important trick that when they start that antsy thing, and you're going to get it, it may be 15 minutes into your lesson, or it may be 3 hours in, who knows. But, no, let's be realistic, it's not going to be 3 hours. I would make them do something. I would make them get up and do jumping jacks. If it were nice outside, I would make them run around the house. And I would tell them, you have to run around 5 times. And when you get done, you can come back in. And I'm going to be watching you from the kitchen window, so I know that you've done all 5 times. Because little boys, all kids, but especially boys, need to move. And just because they're moving doesn't mean that they're not listening or paying attention. A lot of times when they're moving, whether they're twiddling a pencil or whether they're laying on the couch with their feet up in the air, they're listening to you. And you can ask them questions every now and again just to make sure. Kind of be like, okay, well, what did I just say? What do you think about what I just said? And more often than not, I have found that they are listening. They pay attention when they're moving or sometimes sitting still, but boys moving mostly. Right. I think that's fun.
Well, with the distance learning too, there may be scheduled breaks into that virtual learning. And so you would recommend that if they give you a 5-minute break, to make sure your children take that break.
Yes.
Get up and walk around, not just go to the bathroom, but do something.
Right.
And not just
grab
be
their phone.
sitting. Yeah.
Don't put them on a tablet, because that's the last thing they need to do at this point. They've been sitting and listening to you or looking at the screen. So, they don't want to play a video game.
Yeah. Well, my middle daughter that lives in North Carolina homeschools, and their home they don't have extra room. They have several children, so they don't have an extra room just for homeschooling. So she homeschools at their dining room table. And I know, so another friend of mine has got an extra room. It's all kind of set up. So, what would you all say? What is the best environment to be schooling your children at home, whether it's virtual or homeschooling?
I would say anywhere. Anywhere you can read a book, anywhere you can go outside, you can be at the kitchen table. Sometimes we'll do math at the kitchen table, and then when we're done with math, we'll go to a different spot for the next subject. And I don't know how that will work for virtual learners, but that can be something where they can move around, just get a change of scenery. Sometimes that helps too.
Okay. So there's another thing that I've thought a lot about that I've just really been praying for a lot of parents out there, because a lot of parents work outside the home. So maybe now you're going to be distance learning. Maybe now you're working from home because of our pandemic situation, and now you're going to be distance learning or virtual learning with your child. So that can be a lot to juggle and try to adjust. And Mandy, I know you do that. You work from home, but you also school as well. So is there anything there that maybe you can share with people to maybe help them through those rough little bit of time of trying to juggle all of that?
I've been teaching for 3 years with a company, and my children were a little bit older when I started working at home, so it might be different if your children are younger, but I teach very early in the morning to students in China, and then I also will teach I call them my American students in the morning, so I teach both, but the one thing I would recommend is when we first started this was something that we felt like we needed to do for our family, and my husband was highly supportive. I think you have to have dad on board also. One thing I do know, I have a friend who she's doing virtual learning this year, and the mom and the dad are tag teaming it. She is actually teaching 3 days, and he's doing 2 days of it. So they're working their schedule, they're changing it to make it feasible for their family. So I would basically just pray about it. If you do need to work, God will provide a way. God provided my other teaching job when it looked like there was nothing I could do. So I would just pray about it, ask the Lord to put things in your path that you have a heart for, that you can work around your schooling. Because that really should be your number one priority is your kids and teaching them. But God will make a way. When it feels like there is no way. But I think coming together as husband and wife, doing it together as a family, that will make you stronger and that will make it work.
Okay, that's great tips. A lot of you all are maybe homeschooling for the first time just simply because of the pandemic and not really sure if schools are going to be on and all the things that go along with the guidelines of having a child in school. So you're just saying, for this year, I'm going to school them at home. So, Emily, I think you've got I've learned so much from these ladies because there were things that I had never even thought about. I just thought, yes, you just get some curriculum and you just start teaching them from home. But there's a little more involved in that. And so she's going to give us some tips and some information that maybe will help you too.
I love the public school system. I went to college to be a public school teacher, and my mom retired from the public school system. So I want to support parents that are just wanting to homeschool for this 1 year and then go back into the school system. We have awesome resources we've all pulled together, and they're going to be posted on our Facebook page. That is the New Vision Homeschool Facebook page.
Yeah, it's a group, Facebook group. Mm-hmm.
It's a group page, and you have to become a member of that group. And then you can have access to all these pages that we're going to be referencing tonight. And the one that I have for you guys is it has the Tennessee state standards. That's going to be important for you to keep on track with what grade level your child would be completing this year. Some of us that are homeschooling long term, we don't stay on track exactly with those state standards. But if your child is going back into the public school system, that's going to be very important. They have standards K through 12 and all the way through each subject. So you can check that out. There's also a resource. It's from Murfreesboro City Schools, and they have created worksheets as well as other references so that you can kind of see what that standard looks like, what questions to ask to make sure that your kids understand that question. I think if you're a Rutherford County, Williamson County, any of our surrounding counties, that's still a great resource that you can pull from. Something you might hear talked about is scope and sequence. That's what they teach each year. So the kindergarten teachers have certain things they're teaching, first grade all the way through high school, that they're hitting on those years. That is their scope and sequence. You want to be sure that you find out what your child would have been learning that year. This is Rutherford County Scope and Sequence is a link on that Facebook page resource we're going to link to. And this is a great high school resource. Some of the links for the middle school, I couldn't get them to work just right, but this high school, it has exactly what each grade level needed to to know during that school year. Some other resources we thought that you guys might need are math. I've heard so many people say they're intimidated of teaching math, and I've heard of lots of people using Khan Academy. There's a link on there, and you can search division, and they'll show you a lesson on how to teach your child division, or you can even show your child that lesson. Other resources I came across were for books locally. We read lots of books at our house, and you may feel like you need to purchase a lot of books. That's not the case. We have a great library here. There's a link on this page that will lead you to the Rutherford County Library System, and you can search titles, subjects that go with what you're teaching, have them hold the books for you, and you can just walk in the front, pick them up, check them out. It's really amazing. Also, there's an app called Hoopla. You can get free books. It's associated with our library. As long as you have your library card, you can go on that app. Sometimes you can even check out YouTube. They'll have a teacher reading a book to your kids. There's another resource called Tumblebook, and all these links are on that Facebook page. Sometimes if you're wanting a certain book to purchase, there's McKay's. That is a really great resource. They have so many book selections. Take your kids with you. Let them pick out a few. It's like a secondhand bookstore, and they're super cheap. Another great online resource is thriftbooks.com. If there's one specific title you just feel like you have to have and our library doesn't have it, that's another great place to look. There are two other online resources that are free. One is called Easy Peasy, and that is an online homeschooling resource that you can go, and that may help you as you're trying to stay in line with these state standards. The other one, I said it was free. Some of the classes you pay for, it's called outschool.com. And you can search specific classes. Your kids can watch those virtually. So those are all listed on that resource on the Facebook page. I did also want to mention some of us up here, we have internet filters. And that is very important. If you're giving your child free reign of the internet, free reign of, you want them to learn. You want this to be a great educational experience, but you also want to protect them and have some way that they are being filtered from negative influences that can sneak in online. So some of those that I listed are Circle and Bark and Custodio. Those are 3 internet filters that we've all used before.
So, Emily, what filter does your family use?
We use the Custodio, and it can go on our laptop, on our phones, and on the kids' tablets. So that's really important to our
Do any
family.
of you use something different?
Well, we use Bark, but also our internet, our Wi-Fi thing we use Norton, and they actually have a really good, you have to kind of go through and sign into it, but it's probably better than the one that we use through Bark. You can filter it out. You can actually see what's already been done. So I like that as well.
Right. So as you can tell, we've just barely got started, and it is an onslaught of information out there for you all. And if you're watching online, you'll see their name come up on the screen with their email address. Jot that down really quickly because these ladies, they have such a heart to serve. They want you to email them. They want to be there for you with whatever questions you might have, or even if it's the first step to get started. So please take advantage of that. And if you didn't get it down or you aren't able to tonight, just remember to go to their Facebook group page. It's New Vision Homeschool Ministries. Does it say ministry? I think it does, Ministries Group. So if you just search that on Facebook, then you can go on that, ask to join it, and all of this information will be on there. It's like a 10-page document of a lot of information that they have gathered and put together in one place for you to go through. So we really do appreciate all that they've done there for that, for sure. So do you have anything else for the short term? So the way I understand it, the most important thing to do is that if you think you're only going to do this for a short term, whether it's for half a year or for the whole year, whatever your plan is, you really need to make sure you know what the state standards are and kind of stick to that, whatever curriculum you use, but just make sure they are proficient at those state standard levels so that they can go back in. They'll be caught up, in other words, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, the rest of our time will be talking about those of you that maybe are choosing for the very first time to homeschool your child for the long haul. And there is a lot of information here. I'm going to turn it over to Robin at this point, and they're probably going to carry it for the rest of the evening. They have so much information and so much help. I am just so grateful for their experience and their willingness to help us in this way. So, Robin, maybe you can start with some best practices or some things like that for the long-term homeschooler.
Well, it's really hard to know where to start, and it depends on what age kids you have and what grade levels to really know the best place to start. But I would say, if you don't know already, that there are so many resources in this area and just online, like Emily has already said. There's just a lot of support groups in Murfreesboro, Middle Tennessee. Just lots of opportunities out there for homeschoolers. And so it can be a little overwhelming sometimes when you step in and see all the resources that are there, because you still need to know where to start. So that's where I would recommend, if you can find someone or contact, one of us or someone else that you know that has homeschooled before, has already started before you, to kind of get some help on that, to know where to begin. A lot of us would say that with curriculum that we maybe started something that someone else recommended and then found out that we really liked it for our family, or that we didn't for some reason and tried something different. So that you just have to know that is part of the process, is a trial and error in lots of things, all the things. If you are going to homeschool long-term past just this current school year, you probably are going to want to join an umbrella school. You can register with the county or city school, but most homeschool parents that I know that have homeschooled for a few years or more would recommend an umbrella school. And that information is also on the Facebook page, the group page. And before I forget, when they go on that page, Lisa, do they need to click on any specific thing to get to the documents?
Okay, so right now, what should have happened at 6 is there should be a post that went up from me that's going to have a link to the file. If for some reason that didn't, the file is going to be underneath the files on the page, so
Okay.
you can do it either way.
So there's
That's
a
great.
files tab. Okay.
Okay, I know very little about homeschooling, but I have to ask, what is an umbrella school? Is that what you said? And what is an umbrella school?
Well, I probably will not give you the best definition, but really what it means for you is it's your administrator as far as you send your attendance, you send your grades, you tell them what curriculum you're using. Most of the umbrella schools in Tennessee that I'm aware of do not dictate your curriculum choices. They just want to know what you're using. And it helps you keep up with it also. But they do need to turn in your attendance. And that basically is your safety net between you and the state, between you and, the local authorities. If they're wondering, for whatever reason, why your kids are not in school, this is your umbrella school, and they do all of that for you.
So it's an accountability. They're keeping the records that you provide to them. I mean, I could see where if they're asking me for attendance, that would help me stay on track a little bit, and at least in the school year or the calendar year, get everything that they needed as far as their attendance done for the state requirements.
And there's usually, a small fee that is attached to that. Anything else that I'm leaving out?
Well, I will say they're considered a private school technically. And what they do is, the good thing about them is you don't have to mess with the public school system at all, like your zone school. If you're using an umbrella, basically you can contact the umbrella that you want to use, and they take care of all that for you. So takes your hands off of taking them out of the school system if your kids are in the school system now. So that's another thing that they do. And like Robin said, it's basically a safety net so that you don't have to worry about the legalities of it. And they will keep you on track. And
So
they'll keep your records.
If you don't have an umbrella school, you still do the reporting, but you do it to the school system?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, and there's also testing that goes along with that with the school system. They're going to tell you that you should have your kids tested in certain grades. It's not every year. And with the umbrella school, they can do different things. In fact, I think in Tennessee, you are not required anymore. I think the law changed recently that you are not required anymore to test standardized test your kids if you're underneath an umbrella school. That doesn't mean it's not a good idea for you to kind of know where they are in certain subjects and maybe some weaknesses, and also just to get them used to standardized testing because, at some point they're probably going to do that, even if it's, all the way to ACT. But so that's something that you can do on your own, not attached to the school system.
Right.
They also help you pick your path, because if your child is going to be going to college, they will set you on a different path from different things to make sure that they have all the things that they need before they go to college. So it's very important there too, because once you hit high school, you have a transcript just like any other public school student. So you want to make sure they will keep closer contact with you, especially when you're in high school.
Right.
And speaking of high school, they will also give you a deployment, and like a lot of them will have little graduation ceremonies. But if your particular umbrella school doesn't, then several different groups throughout the county have graduation ceremonies for your kids when they graduate from high school. Proms, everything. I mean, you think of homeschooling has gotten so big that there are so many different events that you can go to throughout different places that are on the website or the page that will link through the Facebook group.
So what would be the very first step that someone should make if they're deciding, okay, I'm going to homeschool? Now, this doesn't mean maybe for the very first time, like their child is just starting kindergarten or first grade, or it could be someone that's in high school. What would be the very first step that they would need to do?
I would say get an umbrella school.
Yeah,
That
okay.
would be my suggestion. And call the umbrella school. The one that I use is out of Hendersonville, but I've never been there. I don't have to go there. I do everything online. Or call them, and there's always someone there that can answer my questions and I can have a conversation with and just help me navigate.
Yeah, well, I can see where that really does help, not only hold you accountable and take care of those things, but it does help you make sure you're not missing anything, that you're, keeping your child proficient, and they'll be able to graduate and go into college with, not having to learn something else as well. So I think that's really great. So if you had to name what is a struggle, what is the biggest struggle that you've had during your time beginning and continuing on through homeschooling? So can you remember back when you first started, what was one of the biggest struggles?
Are you looking at me?
Yeah.
Well, so specifically long division and teaching a fourth grader, but just this feeling of insecurity and that I'm not doing enough. I can't teach all three of these kids, and are they falling behind? Am I missing something? I went to a conference one time and I listened to a lady speak, and she said the best thing that I've ever heard is that there are going to be gaps. When you send your child off to college, they will have gaps in their education. And if you send your child to public school, they are going to have gaps in their education. If you send them to the best private school in the world, there are going to be gaps in their education. So you're not going to be able to teach them everything that you think they should know or that the world thinks they should know. But I think the important thing is that you really focus on them and focus on what we have really worked on is their spiritual growth. And personally, we feel like if our kids leave the house and they are close to God, then we have done what we needed to do. I mean, and that's just for our family. But they're not going to know everything about history. They're not going to be able to ace the ACT or any other test that's put out there. But that was kind of our focus when we really decided to go in for the long haul.
Okay, so after you kind of get over some of that, because that would be my biggest thing, is just be afraid that I would not do it well enough or I would miss something. And that would kind of give me a peace of mind to know that. So once you get at Umbrella School and you're going to get started on this, I know you're probably going to, I'm thinking, so what am I going to teach them? So you're going to have to pick some curriculum or a style of teaching. I think we had talked about this some. So would someone like to speak into maybe just briefly some different styles of teaching? All of this stuff is in that document as well that's on Facebook, but I would like for us to speak into it. Maybe like style of teaching, or maybe some curriculum that you have chosen and why you've chosen it. Mandy, would you like to speak into that?
I think that by homeschooling at home, you learn the way your children learn. Not everyone learns everything the same way. I'm very visual. Someone else might learn through reading. So I think you will learn the way that they learn, but that doesn't mean you need to teach them just that one way, because they're also going to go to college one day. They need to be able to listen. They need to be able to have that ability to be able to learn different ways. But I have found that through, I'm terrible at math, so we do a math that's basically online called Teaching Textbooks. We also do more of you can do classical approach, you can do, I try to hit different ways of learning for each subject. And then that way they are aware of different ways to learn. I think when I first started, I just bought a packet that it was all taught the same way because I was very insecure. Don't go to Pinterest. Don't think that you need your classroom to look a certain way. Don't think you have to do A, B, C, D, E all the way to triple Z. Just loving on your kids, being available for them. You will learn the way that they learn. And I also think it also brings out some heart issues that we were able to work through that I probably did not see when my kids were little, but when you sit down to start learning, you see some heart issues and you're able to address those things. So that's to me, is one of the best benefits of homeschooling. But just having, it's a plethora of different ways that you can learn in different materials. And that's why people like us, we're here to help you. We can show you curriculum, what we use, but it might not be the best thing for you, but just being available and going to McKay's. McKay's also has a homeschool. I haven't been to the one in the Nashville area, but Chattanooga has a huge homeschool section. So you can actually go and look at the different ways of learning that are available.
So there again, it's some trial and error there,
Yes.
you know. So that's really good to know. Now, did you say that you found out there were heart issues? Can you expand on that just a little bit?
I will say one of my children, I won't say which one, but when I went to teach them how to write the letter A, it stressed them out to no end. And I couldn't understand why they were so stressed out. And when they went to write, well, I would, do it for them. And then they were like, kind of just really stressing out over it, like wanting to pull hair out, kind of stressed. I'm like, hey, what's wrong? What's wrong? And they're like, I want to write like you. I want my A to be perfect like yours. I'm like, baby, I've been writing for 35 years, this letter A. So we were able to address some heart issues that is just an overall, because those same perfectionistic tendencies are in school, they're in your friends, they're in everything in life. So we're able to work through some of those things.
That's great. Anybody else have anything?
Well, she reminded me that I wanted to share that really some of my goals, and I think were good goals for long-term homeschoolers, kind of what I think Lisa said also, just to teach your kids how to learn, because you're not going to be able to teach them everything. If you open up a catalog or go to a certain website, you're going to think that you're really missing out. Your kids are not getting what they need because you're not learning Greek and Latin and another language that, you could go to a country and speak today, and you're not doing, this Bible study, and you're not doing the geography and the art. I mean, there are so many things out there and so many things to do that you can't do it all. You can't teach them everything, but if you can teach them how to learn, how to find the information, and that they would just have a love of learning. If your goal is to guide your kids to a love of learning, and part of that process is just helping them to figure out what they're interested in, what topics, what subjects they really like, going to the library, like Emily said, getting books, if you have some, other good resources to help them learn about those things, and they get to a point where they want to learn. That really helps
Right.
the whole process.
It sparks that curiosity, and we have time as homeschoolers to go with that curiosity and see where it leads. My 10-year-old will ask some amazing questions. I'm like, I don't know, buddy, but let's find out. Let's search and figure out what it is that makes that science thing happen the way it does. But one of my most frustrating things you asked earlier is when science experiments don't work and you've bought all the supplies and you have it all ready and it just doesn't work the way it's supposed to. That's going to happen. It's fine. You are going to be disappointed sometimes with those science experiments that don't work or things that don't happen just the way they're supposed to, but it's okay. You're all learning together. Everything in life doesn't work out perfectly. And sometimes science experiments are the greatest example of that.
And so that goes to those life lessons that when your kids are at home, you have more time to spend talking about life lessons and things, studying the Bible and having discussions about faith, which we have done a lot. You might get to the end of the day and look back and say, well, all we did today was do this Bible study together. We read about, a person in history, and we tried a science experiment. It didn't work very well, and that was our day. What do I have to check off on my list? And maybe you don't have a lot, and you will have days like that. And it's okay. You have to give yourself grace and realize that you were spending time with your kids. You were modeling for them, and you had opportunity to teach life lessons. Also, having that extra time, I have found, allows my kids to have time to pursue interests and hobbies that they have, that they're able to do that when they finish their schoolwork. Life lessons like cooking, maybe learning how to, clean something, just different things that you need to learn at home that are not considered academic. Those are very valuable also.
So you do have a little more time for life lessons to work into your school day that would just normally happen. So that is real good. I know when my kids were in school and some of our friends were homeschooling, one of the drawbacks at the time, we didn't have all of the travel sports that go on now. We had a little bit, but nothing like what we do now. And I believe even now they can register to play sports within the school system. So would someone like to speak on that a little bit, like the benefit may be there, or do any of you have someone in sports, or you know something about that and the opportunities there? You know a little bit, don't you?
I know a little
Yeah,
bit.
okay.
I know you were talking about you have to register with your zoned school by August the 1st. So for this year, that's kind of out. But there are, well, in sports maybe out this year anyway, I don't even know. But there are other opportunities as well. There are rec league sports, but also there are competitive homeschooling groups that, one of them is the Tennessee Heat, which is linked on the page that's on our Facebook group. There are a couple of others. There's a local soccer team, I believe. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. But there are also opportunities for horse riding. There's one stable in Franklin that they allow actually homeschool parents and kids to go and volunteer there. You can get volunteer hours, plus you can be around the animals. If you have a child that really loves animals or loves horses and doesn't get the opportunity to be around them, that's a good option as well. And some of the umbrella schools, I believe, provide opportunities for sport, for competitive sports.
Both of my children played basketball for their local schools. High school is a little bit different. That's where a lot more of the rules and regulations are a part of. Elementary school, not so much. But that's another benefit of an umbrella program, because at my umbrella, they actually have someone who's over sports that will help you get in with the school system. They help you know exactly what you need. They will send you what you need. You do have to provide extra insurance since your child is not a student there. You have to file an intent to play with TSSAA, like we said, by August 1st. That's we're past that now, but there's lots of different ways that they can be involved.
That's great. And I believe when my kids were probably in high school, some of our friends homeschooled, and that was all just kind of starting to be, because there were more people that were homeschooling, and they were working that out, so that the homeschoolers could play sports.
There's also other ways to be creative about PE. I know that in the past, Patterson Park has had a PE program. I don't know if that'll be available this year. But there's some other businesses that have homeschool days, like a bounce place in town. There's homeschool bowling days. There's homeschool skating in Smyrna. All those businesses that I could find real quick are also linked on our Facebook group that will offer some homeschool days. So you can have a PE day where the whole family goes skating and count that as your PE credit for the day. You guys can go on a walk at the Greenway and count that as exercise for the day. Take your bikes out. You know, all these, you get to be creative with some of the ways that you are incorporating sports and PE and extracurricular things as well.
Weed the garden.
Well, I can tell you my head is spinning because I'm thinking, how do you keep all this organized? So, like, do you plan out lessons? Do you have like a calendar and you make sure everything is done? Do you start at 8 o'clock every day? Do you finish at a certain time? How do you go about, I know everybody's different, everybody teaches differently. Maybe share with us a little bit how you go about organizing the day, the week, the month, whatever in your teaching.
I'm the opposite of type A. So if there's a list in my curriculum that has 52 boxes, I don't worry that I have to check them all off. That's okay with me. But we start after breakfast. So after breakfast, that's when we start. Does breakfast happen at the same moment, same time, every single day? No. But we just know after breakfast is when we get started. Sometimes we do a couple subjects and then we take a break. But I do rely a lot on my curriculum to tell me what I need to do for the entire week. And I kind of look at it as a week view. And if we get a lot done before Friday, then Friday may be the day that we go skating or go do something fun or an outdoor activity, as long as we've gotten all of our other curriculum done for that week.
Anybody else?
I think one of the beautiful things about homeschool is the flexibility. With Ben being in ministry, his day off is Fridays. So what we tend to do is we do the bulk of our lessons Monday through Thursday, and then usually the kids have some independent things that they do Friday morning, and then we try to make Friday afternoon family time. So that's just kind of what we've done. That's one of the beautiful things about homeschooling. You can make it your own, what works for your family. You do have 180 days that you have to get in a year. You know, there are certain standards that you have to meet, but as long as you meet those standards, you're good. One of the things once I started teaching early in the mornings, my kids, we developed a routine where they had independent things that they did first thing in the morning. So that taught them a little bit more independence. They were older, which allowed me to finish up with my job, and then we would all come together. So you just make it work for your own family.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great as they get older that they do learn how to, be better managers of their time, how to make a schedule. They may have, like you said, Emily, this is what I need to do for the week for my English or literature class, my subject that I'm doing, and they have to learn how to break that up for a 5 or 4 day schedule, either one, however you want to work it out. Or maybe even work over the weekend. Sometimes when you get to high school, you're going to have to do some work over the weekend, but it helps them to be able to manage time and to be self-starters. I think that a lot of homeschoolers, especially if they've gone through high school as homeschoolers, really by the end, they are self-starters and have learned how to be independent learners. So.
Well, that's great. Well, how do you make the transition between mom and teacher? So I know that can be kind of difficult when you're trying to teach. So how do you discipline that? How do you get to that? Now I'm mom, but now I'm teacher. Is that difficult?
Yes, yes, especially at first. I mean, for us, it was really difficult because ours were in a public school at first, so they were used to just coming home, me being mom, and all of a sudden I'm mom and I'm teacher, and then I'm mom again. So it took a while. I mean, I think it really kind of depends on the kid, but you just have to have patience through it, really and truly. I mean, I don't know if anybody can really speak into a specific thing they did, but I just had to have patience and realize that, look, this is a learning experience for me too, and especially for some of the moms out there now that have never kind of anticipated this or even thought about it or prayed about it yet. It was just kind of thrown upon them. I think it's just something that you have to kind of communicate with your kids. Look, I realize that this is new for you. It's new for me too. We're going to have to work through this together, and you're going to have to learn to respect the boundaries of, me being mom and teacher, and, because it is a boundary issue too. You can't, you're always going to be a mom, but you kind of have to have that cutoff point where, look, right now I'm the teacher, and we're just going to do it this way. I don't know if that makes sense. But
Yeah, it does.
Well, and God's not only going to teach your kids, He's going to teach you about yourself. And you can't always be barking out orders. You can't always be, you've got to give a little bit of grace, like you said. And you've got to know how to have fun, and you've got to learn when to relax. And I'm sometimes the worst at that, because you're constantly, you're telling them to pick up your room, you're telling them to do their math, you're telling them to do all these things. But you have to remember, you still need to have fun. I think that's the one thing I would say.
I'd say that's a really good example of how the Lord has to deal with us all the time. Biblical, He has to have patience with us and give us lots of grace, as we follow Him. So that's a great life lesson to learn too. Anybody?
And this is where we need support. We need support from other homeschooling moms. Hopefully, in the near future, we will be able to have monthly meetings, and that would be through our Facebook group as well, just where the moms can get together and, share struggles, just encourage one another, pray for one another, ask questions. A couple of families doing lessons together, or just meeting, every other week at the park, just not doing it all on your own.
And that's one thing that we talked about when we were meeting together and planning for this evening, and that came from every one of these ladies, is that they did not want anyone to feel like you're having to do this alone, that you're going on Google and trying to figure this all out alone. That's why they wanted their names up there. That's why they wanted their email addresses there, so that you do not feel like you are alone. And that's what God calls us to here. It's when we talk about don't do life alone, be in community. Well, this is another community, and there's people here that are willing to help you, whatever it is, to listen to you when you've had one of those days that you didn't do it well, and then be singing praises with you on the days that you did. So that's a great thing, and we really do appreciate that. I know there are a lot of co-ops, and I don't know if I totally understand that concept either, because I'm not in the homeschool circle, but could somebody maybe speak to that and what that is exactly for those who might not know?
So there's tutorials and there's co-ops. You guys help me out. If it's a tutorial, most of the time you're paying and someone is teaching, a tutor is teaching. If it's a co-op, the moms are coming together. I might teach one subject, another mom might teach another subject. We're all working together. We have a link on Facebook to another Facebook group. The North Rutherford County Facebook group has a list of all the tutorials available, all the co-ops available in Rutherford County. Some of them may have deadlines that have already passed, but you might be able to find some. I know Fusion is doing some online classes this semester, so that might be an option as well.
That's great. Okay, well, I know, Mandy, you wanted to speak a little bit into mentoring, because I can see where that would be very important for me. If I was starting out with homeschooling, it would be nice to have someone that is that person that I call to ask the questions, that can meet me for coffee or whatever, to give me encouragement and give me some guidance and direction. So you want to speak into that a little bit?
Yes, I think that it's very important to have that person, like we've all been talking about. You don't do life alone, and I think that's a huge theme here at New Vision, and that should be us as believers. We don't do life alone. One thing I can say, when we first started homeschooling, we didn't know anyone who homeschooled. We live on the top of a mountain that was 60 miles from any major city. So I'm so grateful now there is a huge homeschool community that's starting there, and there are actually veteran homeschool moms whose kids have actually graduated, that because of all of this, they're actually teaching classes to the other kids. So it's a really awesome thing. But what we want to do, I'm going to be kind of the go-between. If you are a veteran homeschool mom and you're watching this at any point in time, shoot me an email if you are interested in maybe partnering up with someone, even if it's just distance learning this year. They're going to have some of the same struggles that we're all moms, and we all have the same, basically the same things going on in our kids' lives. So we still want to partner if you are doing distance learning just for a short amount of time. If you think maybe homeschooling is something that you want to look at for the long haul, we want to partner you up with a veteran homeschool mom. So, and when I say veteran, if you've done it a year, you can give guidance, you can help. So if you are a veteran homeschool mom, please shoot me an email. And if you are a new homeschool mom, or if you're doing distance learning, shoot me an email as well. Just kind of let me know, what your plans are and how we can help you, because we're here to basically minister to you. And I'm so thankful for Dixie and the staff here at New Vision who saw the need in this, that, we're here on a Tuesday night, just because we love our church, we love our community, and we want to be here in whatever way. And God's put this in our path. This might be something that God's using to show other people that they want to homeschool that might never have done it before. It might just be a short time for you, but we still want to minister to you in any way that we can. So veteran and homeschool moms that have been doing it for a while, just a short time, and newbies, please email me. I would love to help you.
Anybody else have anything that maybe we haven't touched on that might help someone?
I will say one thing that's very important too. If you are doing this already and haven't found it out yet, you need time for you. And it may be 5 minutes, every day, but you have to realize that now you've taken on another role, and you can't do it all. We physically can't do it all. So when Dad comes home, say, look, tag, you're it. Or, we talked about when we were there, hide in the bathroom if you have to. I've done it, honestly. Sorry, Mom's busy now. And you might grab a book. Who knows, whatever, Bible study, whatever. But you have to figure out where in the day that you can get 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I started, not consciously, subconsciously, when we started homeschooling, I started waking up earlier. I think it was just God kind of saying, look, you have to, and you kind of have to be with me first. And I told my kids for the longest time, because my oldest one would get up and start doing his math, and he would start asking me questions. And I said, look, if I talk to you before I talk to God, then this day is not going to go well. So they learned, look, if I get up and Mom's reading your Bible, I'm going to go make my own breakfast or whatever. So
That's good. And we did talk earlier about making sure your children take a break during the day. So I guess what y'all are saying is make sure the teacher takes a break during the day, and whatever that looks like. Do any of you others have tips on how you manage that in your homeschooling experience? Just grab it when you can.
Yeah.
That's it.
Just
have to be
of candy
creative.
somewhere. I have a stash where I keep my peanut butter M&Ms, but my kids found out where they were, and they were really upset that they found out that I had hidden candy. But just a little getaway. It doesn't have to be a desert island somewhere. Just to get away for a minute for you.
But one of the places that we have lived in our life, I had a friend who had 6 children. And there was one day in particular that she called me. This was in the beginning of the cell phone stage. And she was talking like this. And she was like, hey, what are you doing? And we were talking. I'm like, why are you whispering? She says, I'm hiding in my closet. So she had actually gone into her closet and was calling me for a few minutes just to get a little bit of break from her children. She wasn't homeschooling at the time, but they were all smaller. So she just had to remove herself for a little bit. So there's all kinds of ways to find breaks in your day. I know I stayed at home with my children when they were growing up, but I enjoyed being with my kids. It is hard, and you do need some breaks, but I really enjoyed being with them, and like you said earlier, learning with them. So sometimes maybe you don't need as much of a break because you're learning and going on with them too. Anything else, ladies, that you can think of that we maybe didn't cover or did cover?
I just wanted to say that New Vision Homeschool Ministry, so we've talked about the Facebook group page that we have all these references on. The ministry itself has been in existence for a few years now, and we try to have a few events every year, and that information will also be on that Facebook group page. We're going to try and do some field trips this year. We sometimes have co-op information that we can give you, but the co-op that happens here at New Vision on Thursdays will not be happening this fall, but we are going to try and organize some field trips. Also do an ice cream social probably in September. So we do have some events, some family events that, and just during the day, during the evening, they can be at different times. And also what I had mentioned before, the moms meetings, if we start those back up monthly, and anybody can get on there and suggest something, a field trip. Hey, I want to go here. Does anybody else want to go with me? And just kind of organize it. So that's available.
Great. That's great. That's good information. Emily?
I did want to say that I know all of us as women, as humans, we know that comparison can be a thief. And no matter what you choose for your kids and their education, follow the Holy Spirit. Pray, ask the Lord to guide you, whether that's sending them to public school this year, whether that is distance learning, whether that is long-term homeschooling. Follow the Lord and let him be the guide, because all of our journeys are different. All of our reasons for homeschooling are different, and all of our journeys are different. And it can be an amazing, exciting adventure when we're following him and doing what he's called us to do.
Okay. We have a few people here in the audience, and we were going to let you all ask some questions if you have any questions. Some of you, maybe a lot of you, I'm not sure, are homeschool moms. You teach your children at home. So maybe you've thought of something that we did not share with our online audience. So I have a microphone here that we'll pass around. If you all can think of something, you can just pass the microphone around, ask your question, and we'll try to speak to it.
All right. I don't know if it is on. Okay. I'm going to keep my head to the back so you can't see the front of me. So I am a homeschool mom. We've been homeschooling since my eldest was in kindergarten, and I was an educator in the public school system. So I would like to just add to, because you were asking the question of like, how do you define or differentiate between being a mom and being an educator? And I would say for me, that I thought that was the way that it was, that I was a mom who was now teaching her kids. And I kind of had this idea of, this is going to be a piece of cake because I'm a teacher. So all I have to do is now do that same thing with my children. And I would say to anybody who's getting started, whether you've ever taught before or not, this is a very different endeavor. You are not a teacher. You are a mom or a dad, because there are dads out there, who is educating their child in entirety. And so I think that if you go into it understanding that, then defining, okay, right now, we're going to be focused on school, and so this is what school is going to look like because it's comfortable for me and it's comfortable for you. And then, all right, it's lunchtime, so I get to be lunch lady. But make them be the custodians, because that's really important at home. But that will help you as you go into it to understand, like, it's not a traditional educational setting. And it's okay that it's not. You're just going to be teaching your children as you are training your children, I think is a better way of thinking of it. So
I'm picturing in my mind being the sweet little cuddly mom hugging your child, and then you set them down at the table or desk, and then you turn into the strict disciplinarian just like that. And you're saying that's not the way it is. The best is a relationship. You're the mother or the father. It's the parent-child relationship that you keep intact, and you're just doing different things.
Yeah, and I think like everybody kind of said, you learn as you go. I don't know if you had this experience. I thought that I had to have summers off, and we had to follow a school schedule because that's what I'd done since I was in elementary school and then as I was a teacher. And so it's kind of funny. Somebody started talking about something called Sabbath schooling, and I listened and I thought, well, that kind of makes a whole lot of sense. And so I've been teaching for 10 years, I think, at home now. And it took me until maybe 3 years ago to like let go of being a teacher at home, like having the teacher schedule. So everybody's at a different pace. Families work very differently. I'm a little bit more traditional than some, and others are a whole lot more traditional than I am. So I would just say, though, like, be in prayer about what it is that God wants you to be doing each year, and focused on what is it that we have goals for our family. And that will guide your curriculum decisions. That will guide what you do, whether or not you get involved in a co-op, or, how your time is spent. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that is. It's very helpful. And once again, I'm seeing how it could be very beneficial to have this mentoring thing going on. And I keep hearing trial and error, patience and grace. So that's kind of what we're going to be up against in your first year, at least, of homeschooling. It's just trial and error, have patience and grace. So thank you a lot. Is there anybody else that has something like that, a question you want to ask that maybe you are thinking one of our attendees online might be considering?
Yeah. You can hear me. Can you just tell us how many hours a day for each age group? That's a question people ask a lot. So elementary school, how many hours a day? High school, middle school, can you just give us an idea?
Okay, Emily, you have an elementary school.
I have elementary school, so the second grader, we're required to do 4 hours a day for 180 days of the school year, but he's not sitting at a desk for 4 hours a day. He'll sit and do some work, and then we get up and move, and then we'll come back and do some more. But his is probably about 4 hours, and then as my fifth grader is getting older, has more reading, so sometimes he comes back after lunch and has more to complete, almost like homework. He has more to do later.
Okay.
And also realize that those 4 hours a day don't have to be sitting at a desk and writing, or at the table and writing, or even listening to you read or reading yourself. Part of that 4 hours may be making a grocery list or helping with the budget, or real life things that they need to learn and is just as valuable as the bookwork that you're going to be giving them. So, everything, learning how to sort the laundry, learning how to work the washing machine, and those are learning things that can count, because when you are kindergarten, you're not going to get 4 hours of real schooling, of sitting at a desk and doing worksheets. If you do that to your kindergartner, that's really one way to drive yourself and them crazy.
I can imagine that.
And also, once they get to about 8th grade, 9th grade for sure, I have found it's going to take 5 to 6, sometimes more hours a day to get the work done that they're trying to get done. So it increases.
Has that been your experience too, Mandy?
Yes, very much
Okay.
so.
So it kind of varies with the age. And are those standards set somewhere? I guess maybe your umbrella school would let you know what's expected.
Those are state standards. It's
Okay.
4 hours. And the state standards, if I'm not mistaken, is 4 hours a day, K through 12. You have to have that in. But like I say, the kindergartner is not going to be, like we were talking about, not going to be the full 4 hours. Once you get to middle school, it's going to be more. My junior, I don't know how Maggie is, but my junior last year when he was in 10th grade, there were days that he would work 6 or 7 hours a day on his schoolwork and maybe not even get done with all he wanted to get done that day. So it's definitely 4 hours is what you are required to do, but that's going to vary from elementary to late elementary, middle school, and then high school, depending on their workload.
And they are much more independent when they get in high school. You don't have to sit there with them for 6 hours a day. You know what I'm saying? They have the freedom, and that, like we said earlier, they learn on their own, and they learn how to learn on their own. So that's one thing too. So when they get older, they're also doing a lot of independent work as well.
Okay, very good question. Thank you. Anybody else out there have a question or a point?
Do any of you guys do like the standardized testing at the end of your school years, or have you?
I don't do it every year, but I have done the question about standardized testing. There are a couple of places in Murfreesboro that will set that up, and you can schedule with them. I can't remember. I think maybe I did 5th grade, maybe 8th grade, 8th or 9th grade at the end of the school year. Also, there's an organization that has the tests that you can order yourself, and you can administer them at home, and then they will do the grading for you. And it's not even anything that you send to your umbrella school. They really don't care. It's for you. It's just for, you get the information, the feedback, and decide what you want to do with that and what,
Well, I would
what
say
that tells you.
that might even help you learning a little bit more about how your child learns, because, depending on how they do on this test, you would know if how you were teaching them certain things, maybe that need to be adjusted for them to learn better. I don't know. That's just off the top of my head, but I could see where that would be a good benefit to do those from time to time. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that question. Anybody else?
Do any of you have kids that have a big age gap? So I have an 8, a 7-year-old, and then we have a 2, almost 3-year-old. So trying to keep him out of everything while we're actually trying to get work done is a constant battle for us. So since you ladies are all veterans, do you have any ideas how to keep him busy but also still learning while I'm trying to teach to the older kids? We've tried like work boxes, or I made him like a little school cart with puzzles and coloring books, and we just try to cycle through whatever he can be doing, so I can just kind of go through each kid and have individual time. Do you have any ideas?
So who had a little? Did y'all have little bitties? You did, maybe?
Mine are the same, very close
Oh,
to
yeah,
the
they
same
are
age. I
close
have
to
a
the same
13 and a
age.
15-year-old.
You did, Lisa?
I did. So when our youngest he was 4 years, well, my middle one was 4 years old when the youngest was born. So, and we had, I guess he was probably 3 when we started homeschooling. And basically anything you can do, Play-Doh, anything in the kitchen, I would give him just blank pieces of paper because he hated coloring books. So I would give him blank pieces of paper and crayons and tell him to draw me a picture. And sometimes I would tell him to draw what we were talking about. Like he would sit through history with us, and I would just say, draw what you think we're talking about. And he was 4, and whatever. I couldn't tell what it was. But it gave him something to do, and he felt like he was doing school too. So that's one thing. Naps, if you have little babies, we would school when he was taking a nap. And I have friends who, they do their school by their youngest nap. So that's another option.
That's good. Anybody else have tips there? I would think, boy, they're napping, you knock that school out in that amount of time.
And, I mean,
Get it
like
done.
Mandy said, once they get older, then they don't require as much. You're not sitting there teaching them. But so when you get those main subjects done, it's just like little help here and there when they're trying to get their stuff completed.
This is kind of the exact opposite, but when they both hit a certain age, grade, you can teach the same subject to both of them. That's one thing we didn't really talk about, because some of the things you can teach multiple ages the same curriculum. Apology of Science is great. We've always done that. It works through creation. Each year you're building on it. And the cool thing is they have a lab set already done up for you. You don't have to go to Walmart and buy anything. It's all available to you. And the cool thing is, like, they might have a journaling notebook. Well, the younger kid has one journaling notebook, the older kid has another, but you're still teaching the same lesson. So that's also something to keep in mind. You don't have to teach them separate things if they're really close in age.
History is another thing that we do that with. Bible, even now, our youngest, the 5th grader, does Bible with the 2 high schoolers. He doesn't get as much, maybe not necessarily the same things out of it, but history, there are some history curriculums that will actually encourage you to do that. My Father's World is one, Sunlight is another, and they will have it grouped so that you can, pull from several different ages, and that saves you time, which is important, valuable.
That's good to know, too. Anything else, ladies? Did you have?
One other thing if you have 3 kiddos and you're working with one independently, maybe the other child can go hang out with the little guy. I've seen other families do that as well. I know for us, we do science and history together, but then English and math we separate. And it's worked really well for me as I'm doing math with one kiddo, that the other one has something independent they're doing where they don't need me. That way I can focus just on math and we can knock it out and get it done. and any question they have can get answered in that amount of time.
And then again, that also depends on the personality of the child. And even like giving them a piece of paper and telling them to draw themselves, whatever you're hearing us say, it's going to depend. You're just trial and error. You're just going to have to work through your school day and see what works best for your family.
My littlest one liked to do gymnastics while we were trying to do our lessons when he
I
was
can see that.
not in kindergarten yet. So I have pictures of him just rolling upside down and crawling around all around our school.
Yeah.
Who knows? He was probably learning the whole time.
He probably was, taking it in. That's right. Anybody else have anything there that you'd like to add? Well, we can go ahead and close here because we've been a little longer than an hour, but I think it's been great information. And all of you that are here with us tonight and watching online, I hope you hear and see the heart of these ladies and of this homeschool ministry here at New Vision. Things that we heard today is pray. Pray about what direction you're supposed to take. Pray about your curriculum, what's going to work best for your family, and have patience and trial and error and give grace to each other. What we're describing here too, and what these ladies are about here, is about bearing each other's burdens, as I said in the beginning. That's what's motivating them here. But I'd like to close with this, because this is something else that I have seen in these ladies. I mean, we got this together in about 6 business days, 6 or 7 business days. We had a weekend. We're doing other things, but we met Zoom once and we met in person once. These ladies have such a heart for what they're doing homeschool-wise, but even a bigger heart to give what they have to help you. And I was reminded of the passage that is in 2 Corinthians chapter 9. This talked about the cheerful giver. Who is, the point is this, it says, whoever sows sparingly will reap sparingly, and whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. So there again, in their hearts and in their giving, they're glorifying God. So that's what we want to be doing with our life. So thank you, ladies, very much. I'm telling you, they have got the information for you. They can surely help you get directed in the direction you want to go with your homeschooling endeavor or your distance learning endeavor, whatever situation you find yourself in now in educating your children. Man, it's a lot to sort out, I know, a lot of things to decide, but these ladies are here. Their homeschool group, our ministry here at church is here to help you get those directions and make those decisions. So please remember, you can go to their Facebook group, New Vision Homeschool Ministries Facebook group. You can search it that way. And once you get on there, you'll just have a plethora of information. There's also in that document, the first page of that document has these ladies' names and their email addresses again. So feel free to email them with any questions. Maybe we ran through something quicker and you're watching online and you have another question. Please email those. You can also email women@newvisionlife.com. That's kind of easy to remember. We do a lot of the newvisionlife.coms around here. So women@newvisionlife.com, if that you can remember that easier, and I will gladly get you the information or forward your questions onto them because we want to serve the Lord by helping you and serving you in this way. So thanks again for joining us, and we hope this is a help to you, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.